Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters.
12 noon straight up, June 8th, 2020. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appell, and of course, we are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them, and you should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And by the way, a special shout out to Scott at Uncle Studio, who's been with me for quite a few years now, and Jared, the IT guy. It looks like our Monday window is here. And although I didn't get a 2-minute warning notice that the show with the 2-minute countdown window, we did get the notice from Facebook. So this is a good thing. And I hope all of you follow Work Comp Matters. You'll get notified if you want. If you like us, click the like button. If you don't like us, you can click the don't like button. All that I love and ask for is objective criticism. Tell us why you like Work Comp Matters, or why you don't like Work Comp Matters, or Steve Appell is better than sliced bread. He knows what he's talking about, or that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, whatever the case may be. So I'm joined by the madman across the water, John Scalia, and the chief of staff, Dr. Mike Zima. And of course, our lead story has to do with the Minneapolis Police Department. Yesterday afternoon, hundreds of people rallied at a Minneapolis park to call for more changes to the city's police department. 9 out of 13 Minneapolis City Council members stood up on the stage to announce their intent not to disfund, but to disband the city's police department, CBS Minnesota reports. The announcement comes after Council President Lisa Bender and member Jeremiah Ellison tweeted last week that they plan to dismantle the police department. And here is the tweet from Lisa Bender. Quote, "Yes, we are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department and replace it with a transformative new model of public safety." Jeremiah Ellison tweeted, "We are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. And when we're done, we're not simply going to glue it back together. We're going to dramatically rethink how we approach public safety and emergency response." And it's really past due. Well, I got one thing to say right now before I finish it. If you have any people left living in Minneapolis, I guess that'll be true. I know one thing's for sure. I ain't going to Minneapolis possibly for the rest of my life. Then again, I've never been there before. I live in beautiful Southern California. Why the hell do I want to go to Minneapolis? Nevertheless, continuing on. The alternative offer has to do with taking the department money and putting it towards community initiatives that strengthen safety, CBS Minnesota points out concrete details about how to do the work of dismantling the MPD were less defined, although Council member Philippe Cunningham said the upcoming budget, there will be thoughtful and intentional work that's done. Research engagement, learning that happens in a transition that will happen over time, Cunningham said. Many people have asked, in this visionary future with no police, who do you call when there's no 911? One of the speakers on Sunday said it would be family and neighbors. Close quote. I want to go to the madman across the water, John Scalia, who for 35 plus years, amongst others, represented police in beautiful Southern California. Now, John, we mentioned something about defunding the police on last week's show. We certainly did not mention dismantling any police department. What's your take on potentially the city council and the mayor defunding the dismantling the Minneapolis Police Department?
Well, I think when you've got one cop who commits murder and three other cops who stand around and watch him, it obviously calls for dramatic reform. And it seems to me that every time anybody has ever attempted anything resembling reform, it results in the same old stuff. And you keep having the same civil unrest because the policing is still the same and the minority communities are still abused and nothing changes. So personally, while it's obviously a radical idea, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think they can go ahead and just create a brand new police force. I suspect very strongly that a lot of the guys who are on and girls who are on the Minneapolis PD will again be back on the force. I suspect a lot of them would probably get hired for a new police force. But given what happened, I think starting from scratch ain't such a bad idea.
John, I'm not aware that a city's police department has ever been dismantled. Are you?
I'm not aware of any. I know that in Compton, when things got so bad in Compton that the whole city was corrupt, that the state of California took over everything. And I'm assuming that included the Compton Police Force because they have their own police department. So that can happen. But in terms of a police force this large, I doubt if it's ever happened before. Not that Minneapolis PD is that huge. I mean, if you compare it to LAPD, the budget is about 1/10 of what LAPD's budget is.
I want to go to my chief of staff who keeps me in check and hopefully out of trouble at least 90% of the time, Dr. Mike Zyma, but he's not a medical doctor. We were talking about this story earlier. Mike, what's your take?
Well, my initial take is that it's lunacy, that it's anarchy. But the more I hear about it, at least with regard to the Minneapolis model, I do see that there is some proposal to have something take the place of the police department. When I first started seeing these defund the police department signs and all that kind of stuff, I thought it was indeed they were just going to completely get rid of the police, which is, of course, nonsense. But in Minneapolis, apparently they're talking about a new model. I'd be very interested to see what comes of it. I think, however, that it also has a lot to do with union busting. If they have, which is fine with me with regard to the police department. Don't get me wrong. They've got way too much power, and because you can't get the bad guys out. Everybody, all those rank and file people know who the bad guys are. They know who the bullies are. They know who the racists are. And they for some reason they can't get them the heck out of the departments. So if they have a new model perhaps they won't have to deal with the unions anymore. I'm trying to be hopeful here. It does seem like there has been a little more thought been put into it at this point. That's how I feel at this point.
You know, John, at least for the California bar, there are tenants dealing with attorneys that if an attorney is aware that another attorney is violating any code of ethics or provisions in the California State Bar, then they too are violating the provisions of the bar if they don't report it. Now, apparently, this provision does not exist in law enforcement. I know that last week, Gavin, I know that Mayor Garcetti, I don't know if it was Gavin Newsom, was saying, we're going to institute a new policy that they have to report this. I've always believed that law enforcement officers, be it unfortunate, essentially police their own, which in my opinion is why a lot of these events of police brutality go on unreported. Yeah, and I'm sure you saw the movie A Few Good Men, where they were talking about code reds, and I know it's only a movie, but Tom Cruise was questioning Kiefer Sutherland, and he was asking him if he reported some malfeasance, and he said no. And Tom Cruise looks at him and said, "You preferred it to be handled within the unit." Do you believe that police officers, police forces, when they have problems, they prefer to handle it within the unit?
No, they don't handle it. And
they don't handle it at all, is what you're saying.
Right, they don't.
Okay.
And that's why they have an internal affairs bureau, which every cop hates, because they just think that they're snitches and they're doing the devil's work. I mean, it goes way back. I mean, if there's an old Latin sentence that says "qui custodit custodes," which means who guards the guards, and it's an old problem. Of course, you've got to have somebody that you can't let them police themselves. Obviously, that's like letting the fox guard the hen house. Can't do it.
I knew you were going to say that. Somebody told me, I presume it's true, I don't know, that the one thing a law enforcement officer fears more than being shot by a bullet is going to prison. My name is Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, I have them. You should too. It's only $1 a day. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, number one computer management system, 818-357-4120 for your no strings attached money back guarantee, $1 a day. A1 Law. Our next story is from the San Francisco Chronicle. Actually, strike that. It's from the Sacramento Bee. My mistake. Deaths in California nursing homes from COVID-19 more than doubled during the month of May as skilled care facilities for the elderly continue to disproportionately bear the brunt of the pandemic across the United States. A total of 1,190 nursing home residents died from the disease last month alone, representing more than half of the state's coronavirus recent deaths for the month. Well, all I can say is hopefully nobody went out and did protesting, and then before going home, washing up, taking a shower, hopefully they didn't go straight to a nursing home.
Is that where you're going to send them?
John, you know what? That's really a good question. Dr. Mike, unless you have a comment on the nursing home, why don't you go ahead and read the next story?
California set a new single-day record for confirmed coronavirus cases on Friday as a surge of new positive tests pushed the number of cases statewide above 125,000. According to data compiled by some news organization, I'm sorry about that, folks. I don't know which news organization it is. Hold on. Mercury News, I believe.
It's the Steve Appell WorkCompMatters news organization. No, I'm just kidding. Please continue.
There you go. Cited. Public health officials throughout the state reported 3,603 new coronavirus cases and 83 new deaths Friday. California has now confirmed 126,204 cases and 4,536 people are known to have died from COVID-19. The number of new reported cases has been climbing at an alarming clip in recent weeks. Friday's new record shattered the previous single-day high of 3,131 cases, which was set on Monday. But the increase has come and access to coronavirus testing has expanded, so it's not clear whether the trend reflects that COVID-19 is surging in the state or if more people who have the deadly illness are now being tested for it. County public health officials anticipate an increase in coronavirus cases in the coming weeks because of both the protest and the reopening of businesses and other establishments. Still, they hope that the increase in those who become sick enough to be hospitalized is not sufficient to overwhelm the healthcare system.
You know, another story in the news that came out this morning that hasn't been talked about too much is from the Wall Street Journal. This spring, America took an involuntary crash course in remote learning. With the school year now winding down, the grade from students, teachers, parents, and administrators is already in. Regarding kindergarten through 12, it was a failure. Now, I spoke or actually communicated to a couple of teachers today, and they all agree that no matter how much training and time you put into it, there's just no substitute for a teacher to be face-to-face with a student in class. Now, that being said, I want to give a lot of the, I'm going to say, causation, responsibility of this failure to the fact that this came on all of the sudden. We were certainly unprepared for it, and we were without question learning as we go. And I think this, let me just say, I think learning with telecommunication is going to become more prevalent later on in the year and next year. But in my mind, there clearly is no substitute for in-class learning. But I think that we're going to improve on that. John Scalia, you're in Munich, Germany. Do you know the K through 12 system, how they've been doing in the past couple of months?
No, actually, I don't. I'm not sure. They've been closed, though. I don't think there's any there for a while. I don't think there was any instruction of any kind going on.
Really? They just closed up shop, huh?
No, I'm not sure. They may have done it. They may have done it online. I have no idea, basically, because I don't have any kids here, so I don't know.
Mike, do you have another news story for us, please?
As of Sunday, there were 14 inmates at San Quentin with active cases of the virus, according to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation website. In an email, a Corrections Department spokesman wrote the department recently transferred inmates who were at high risk of infection from the California Institution of Men in Chino, the site of one of the prison system's largest outbreaks, to other prisons, including San Quentin. Quote, while the inmates were tested and medically evaluated before and after the transfers, 4 of those transfers have tested positive at San Quentin and 1 at Corcoran State Prison, end quote. Corrections Department spokesman Dana Simas wrote in an email.
And I tell you, that's all good news. I'm out of stories for the morning. John, is there anything there that you want to talk about, or anything there or not there? We've got some time.
Yeah. Again, this is my Madman Across the Water segment. You know, I was listening to Nancy Pelosi today, and I was thinking of a movie, No Country for Old Men. Well, actually, America apparently is a country for really, really old people to be in charge. In fact, they're too old. I mean, they should all go. They should all go away. And I don't, I'm the oldest guy on this podcast. Okay, so if you want to call me being ageist, I don't care. But the point is, I mean, it's ridiculous. Get out of the way. Let people who are under 100 years old start running things. I mean, if you go down the list, it's absurd. I mean, Donald Trump is my age. He's 73. Okay, that's too old. Biden is 77. That's too old. Nancy Pelosi is 80. And if she didn't have plastic surgery, she'd look like 100. Mitch McConnell is 78. I mean, all these people are just too effing old, and they should go away. I heard Nancy Pelosi today when she was introducing the Justice Reform Act being proposed by the Democrats in the House talk about quality immunity. Idiot, it's qualified immunity. And it's same with Trump. I mean, these people are so old they can't even remember words anymore. And these are the people running the United States of America. It's absurd. I mean, you should have mandatory retirement age. If they won't go, well, I mean, I could have more drastic proposals, but they probably wouldn't make the court of human justice. But the point is, get rid of them. I mean, my God, think of something else to do. If you're that old and the only thing you could do is still stay in politics, something's wrong with you. I remember when I was, telling the congregation I belonged to in California that I was going to Germany and I was going to relocate. And what I said was specifically, I said, Acts 1 and 2 of my life have been a lot of fun. And I don't see why Act 3 should be any different. And for those of you who don't go to plays, Act 3 is the end act. Okay? So the point is, get a life. Do something besides trying to run the country when you're in your dotage and can't even remember words in the English vocabulary. And you're too old to run a country. Go away. Retire. Write a book. Do something. But get the hell away. Quit. Yeah, that's the view from this side of the pond.
And of course,
got started. Thank you.
For the record, John has written 2 books and does a podcast daily.
And I'm writing my 3rd book as we speak.
Are you at liberty to say what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Tales from Court. I'm writing about all my. Yeah.
All right, am I in your book at all, John?
Not yet.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'll remind you of one story which we've discussed before that I'm going to close the show. When John was still practicing, and both he and I were on the same case, representing medical lien claimants. We had a lien trial, and we were there at trial. There were about 7 or 8 of us representing lien claimants. And the judge said, now I can't force you to, but I strongly recommend, for expediency's sakes, that all of you lien claimant representatives elect one person to do the examination of the witness. And everybody, except for John, said, Steve, why don't you do it? Everybody might have said, Steve, why don't you do it? And John either agreed or didn't object to it. And my immediate response was, hell, let's have Scalia do it. And so Scalia was the one that examined the witness. Now, unfortunately, I don't remember if we won or lost, but that was, I think, John, the one time we've been in trial together. Am I mistaken?
I think that's right. Yeah, I do remember it. And I remember carrying the ball for the lien claimants. I can't remember what happened with the ultimate resolution either. So there you go.
I do remember that when the judge, I'm not going to give her name, when the judge said something to the effect of when it was your time to cross-examine the witness, she either said, Mr. Scalia, lien claimant representative, or Mr. Scalia, hearing representative. And John, you may or may not remember, you said, Your Honor, I'm a licensed attorney. I'd like to be referred to as such, or I passed the bar 30 years ago. I think that stands for more than a hearing representative or something like that.
Yeah, I did. I remember saying that, yeah.
But there you go. It's been a pleasure being with you on this Monday, June 8th at 12 noon for another edition of Work Comp Matters. For my chief of staff, the Dr. Mike Zyma, madman across the water, John Scalia, Scott Walton of Uncle's Studio, and all the good people back at the WorkCompcentral, not limited to Ms. Kristen Chavez. My name is Steve Appell. We'll see you again tomorrow at noon for another edition of Work Comp Matters.